Welcome in, everyone. Here we are. It is another Monday. Hold on for a minute here. Uh-oh, we have a little bit of technical things here. We have Amani here and Mandy. Because remember, last week we had a couple hiccups here, so I'm going to slow us down here. Mandy, while we're fixing this camera, fill us, oh, I don't know, it's a little bit hectic here. Fill us in on your weekend. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. Hold on for a minute here. We I'm not getting your sound here. Let me think here. Let's do guesping here. Let's do one more thing here. We can just have live streaming here. We it was working fine before when I picked it up there and tested it out. Okay, so Cleveland Browns, you're lucky. My team didn't play this week, but still. So we did. We had a bye, which we needed. And then yes. So that here you go, Mandy. So let's copy this here and let's go to studio mode because they see you, but we can't hear you. So hold on. Let's try this again. Okay, now. Okay, so there. So now, say something now, Mandy. Where are you?
Check, check, check,
Okay,
check.
good, good,
Cleveland
good.
Browns.
Yes, okay, good, good. So we're there. We're good. Cleveland Browns. Um,
How was your weekend, Amani? What happened in your world?
weekend was good. Didn't do much of anything, but like put up some pictures on the wall. Went to a couple events, which was good. Had a really good event on Friday at Cal State Fullerton with some students. So yeah, it was good. We did
Awesome.
good stuff. Yeah, awesome.
Well, I need to give a shameless plug for
Oh
something.
yes, yes. Go ahead, plug away.
Plug away because this is something that I released last week. And this is the very first time. I've been doing sales coaching for 17 years and it's all private. It's corporations or private one on one to many. And I've never ever done a live public show before. And I decided because this past year, a lot of people had asked me, would you do this? Would you do that? And it never made sense. And I thought, let's just put all these different salespeople and all these different industries all together in one room for 1 hour and make some magic. So, Sales Tales Live launched last week. The first live coaching session is February 6th next year and it's going to be 30 minutes of content. So I'm going to pick specific content related to the people that are attending. I'm keeping this first one really small. And then after the first 30 minutes, people are going to bring their live sales problems, going to roll their sleeves up and solve them. We're going to solve them together. And I'm excited because you know how it gets, especially in the hospitality
Yeah.
industry for you and I, Amani. It's like we all solve the same problems the same ways all the time. And so I'm excited for all these different types of salespeople to be in the same room together. They can all help each other. I'm going to help them, but I'm excited for people to feel a little less alienated and be like, oh, I'm in tech. I've got the same thing as the person in manufacturing, and I've got the same thing as the person in hospitality and beauty and PR. So I'm excited about that. Last week it launched, and I'll be posting stuff throughout social media and stuff. But Sales Tales Live, it's up, it's running. It's scary.
It's
It's
funny.
very
We love
scary,
it.
but it's very
All
exciting.
right.
Yeah.
Yes, we
Yeah.
love it. I put the link in the chat there, so that's good there.
Thank
Um,
you.
of course, of course. Tell us who we have the pleasure of speaking with and seeing today.
I am so honored to have this amazing human on our show today. I love me some Lori Richardson, and she is known. I'm gonna have to ask her how she got this name, but in many circles, she is known as the first lady of sales. She's an author of an awesome book called She Sells. She's a creator of a really rad conference called the She Sells Summit. She's the
Mhm.
founder of a consulting firm called Score More Sales. And she hosts so many conversations, women in sales. She's got a podcast all about women in sales and had conversations of women in sales. She's a mom. She's one of the leading voices on LinkedIn for women in sales. Salesforce and Dreamforce have named her one of the top influencers in sales. So
Yes,
I think
yes,
we should just bring Lori Richardson to the stage.
yes. Here you are, Lori. Round of applause. Got the selfie. Yes, 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 yes. Awesome, awesome.
Thank
Welcome to
you.
the show, Lori.
Hey,
I'm gonna
Lori.
let Mandy start us off. We'll go back and forth with questions. We'll take some questions from the audience. We see people tuning in. Um, Take it away, Mandy, for our first question.
Well, first, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you, Mandy. It's such a pleasure. You were on my podcast some time ago, and I'm just honored to be here too.
Yeah, we're really, really honored to have you. And I think if we can hang with your podcast for a minute, because since that is how we met, I was on your show back in May 2022. And
Wow.
I was really struck with the tone of your podcast because it really did feel like a two gal pals having a conversation about
Yeah.
so many things. But if you can, the one thing that I was really struck about was the touching story of your podcast and the origin of your podcast and how it honors your friend Barbara. And I wanted to see if you would share, the origin of the story of the podcast and how you decided to keep it going and just what the podcast is all about.
Yeah, so I never planned on hosting a podcast. I
Mhm.
had been watching other people do it, and my friend Barbara Giamanco had started hosting hers. She was doing a great job. She did it the way I would have done it if I had one. So I thought there's no sense replicating what she's doing. She was interviewing all sorts of different women in sales and sales leadership roles. And then in the summer of 2020, she passed away in her sleep. And it actually was not COVID related, but she had some other issues going on, and I was worried that it would just fall by the wayside, which is what there's so many great women that have been in sales that have written books, like my friend Jill Conrath, for one example,
Mm,
who was done writing her book. She's moved on to another topic, and a lot of new people don't even know who she is. So
mm.
I didn't want this to happen with the podcast. So I asked her one living relative if I could keep it going, and he said certainly, gave me all the information, the permissions and all that, and we changed everything over. And other than changing the colors, it's still Conversations with Women in Sales. And we've had a lot more interviews since then, but the whole idea is to keep shining a light on women who are doing big things in sales and sales leadership in business to business selling.
Ah, I just love that. I just think it's wonderful to honor her, to keep that tradition, but then put your own voice to it. So just thanks for sharing that. I think that's so personal. And while we're on that vein, I just want to chat a little bit about your book called She Sells. And what your book does for me, and I think this does this for a lot of people after reading all your reviews too, is it really speaks to leaders about how to recruit and
Right.
retain and inspire and promote women in sales. So,
Right.
yeah, how can leaders, because we have a lot of people in sales and leaders that listen to this show, like how can leaders spot talent and encourage women in their businesses to look at sales as a career, or how can leaders continue to lift women up based on all your research and all your
Mhm.
experiences that you know?
Oh, gee, how much time do we have? Um,
As much time as you want.
let- let's start with that. You can find potential women for your sales team in other departments in your company. First of all, some are in marketing. There are a lot of women who wanted to go into marketing because they would get a degree in marketing in school. And there were not as many degrees in sales as we know. Now there are over 200 colleges and universities that have sales degrees. However, there's time to catch up, and there's still some bad, karma, just not karma, but just the name of sales has a bad, it's got a bad ring to it, all the movies and everything. So we need different men and women in our companies to point people out and say, you know what, she might be good in sales, and see if they have the competencies to be successful. um, the whole book is tactical. So
Mhm.
it's all about, first of all, finding more women for your sales team. And I wrote it because of all the questions I would get, mostly from men, mostly leaders who said, we want to hire more women, but we can't find any, or they're not staying in the company. What's happening? And so that's why it was just really an answer to all those questions, and it's still accurate, from it's not dated, because we still have the same issues, still have a lack of women in sales, as you probably know.
Yeah.
And also, retention is tough.
I see that. I'm so glad that book is out there, and I hope everybody takes a look at it and reads it, because retention now more than ever is super tough. What do you if a leader were to ask you right now, what are a couple things? What are one or two things that they can do to keep salespeople doing what they're doing within their organization and not go to a different organization? What advice would you give them?
I would say be very transparent with your policies company wide. Treat people the same, including pay, because there's still women sales leaders who are paid less than male counterparts at the same company.
Hmm.
And so, we need to look into that. People don't want to have to try to figure out, are they paying me right? Or,
Hmm.
there's so many opportunities for great women out there that if you have women on your team that are doing a good job, you need to talk to them and say, what do you need from us? How are things going? How am I doing as a leader? And
Hmm.
the best leaders, male and female, do that. They check the pulse and they check the tone, and they want to make sure that they're not missing something. We can't just go, well, we have a lot of women on our team, we're doing really great. Check with them.
Just a quick
Now,
check-in. Yeah.
to continue with that, like in your opinion, what are the most common characteristics that highest performing salespeople have based on all your experience in sales?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because I spend a lot of my time coaching companies on that topic. And in fact, I believe in giving a fair assessment to everybody coming in the door, so that you don't judge them based on, oh, it's somebody's buddy from, this company or that company, but you actually assess on things, not just the skills, because the skills can be taught, all the tactical skills, Mandy, you've probably taught them for years. What's really hard to teach is will, the
Mm.
will to sell,
Mm.
desire, commitment, your outlook on life, your outlook on your career, responsibility, your motivation level, and most importantly, whether you're coachable or not.
Mm.
Why is will so important?
Because it's just like a sports team. I mean, if you have an athlete who's very talented but doesn't try, it happens in sales too. And you've probably been around people like that, Mandy, right? I certainly have. These
Yeah,
great
all the
talented
time.
people, they're like, yeah, I'm done for the month. Or, they're not applying themselves. I mean, you have to have that will that you'll do whatever it takes, legally and ethically, to bring business to closure. That's what a company needs. And so talent, the skills, tactical skills, are just not enough.
Hmm, interesting. Now, in your opinion, kind of a comparative question to this, like, why do you feel there's a lack of black and brown sales leaders in sales organizations worldwide?
Well, I think it's similar to why there's a lack of women, because business was built by white men, and so was sales. And we've had to enter, the party kind of uninvited in some
Crash,
cases.
crash
Yeah,
the party.
that's the
Yeah.
party. That's a better word. Yeah, you're right. You're in hospitality. You know about that. And so it's been much harder. It's just been much harder, and so that's why I love the idea of showcasing women and men, who can, help us reflect who our buyers are, because our buyers are different now, and we've all changed, and so we need to have sales change as well. It's a great question.
Yeah. Yeah. Over to you, Mandy.
Well, I think something you do so well, one of your superpowers is your ability to build community. And I think now more than ever, whether we are remote workers or we're entering a new industry, we have to have some sort of community to belong to, even if it's just to have a rant with somebody about our day or if it's to learn best practices. So, can you talk a little bit about some of those communities that you're a member of and why you personally think it's so important to contribute to a community or to belong to a community?
Yeah, one of the things that I decided a couple years ago in Women Sales Pros was that we were going to embrace all the other women in sales groups and organizations and communities, because it's not us against them. We're all working toward the same thing. And I ran into this because someone wanted to sponsor, one of the women in sales groups, and they said, "Oh, but we want to sponsor you, but we kind of want to sponsor them." And I said, "Sponsor them, because it
Mm,
doesn't really matter. Like, I'll find another sponsor. I'm good." But it's really important that we find, people that resonate for us. And so one of the things I do on the Women Sales Pros blog, which is at womensalespros.com, is, I'll post a list. If you go back on the blog a little ways, you'll see 10 or 12 different communities that are listed and links to all of them. Some that are very active right now are, one of them is called Women in Sales on LinkedIn, and it's run by
yeah.
Arlene Moodwar. They have a great Slack group, and is very active. Also, Sisters in Sales that
Mm,
Chantel George runs, is, they have a Slack group, which is really great. And then I also really like Girls Club that Lauren Bailey launched, which is for women who want to be leaders in their company. They want to get into sales management and leadership. And it's a whole program on virtually to help inspire them and teach them and give them mentors to get that done. I think they have like 70% graduate, of those that graduate, they get into management.
ah, that's
So
awesome.
really exciting. Yeah.
So for the loners out there, like I'll join any group. I love people, right?
Yeah.
So like, but I'm an unusual person. So for the loners out there that are like, okay, what goes on in these groups? Like, what's in it for me? What are
Yeah.
some of the things that like, how can you explain what these groups are to people or what they might get out of it if they participate?
Well, a number of them will host panels. They have topics. There's sales topics so that you can improve your skills. There'll also be topics about issues that, women are dealing with in their companies. There's a kind of a safe feeling that you can post a question and someone will answer it, and it's not going to go very far. And some have job boards, so for if people are in between jobs, they can look, or they can get someone to, I've seen people be, they've joined a Slack group, they've gotten known, and then all of a sudden they're in the middle of a job search, and someone, takes them right to the next place and
Mm.
introduces them, and it goes really, really well. So that was the good side of what we went through in the pandemic, was that a lot of these things started happening online, which we never had a sales community online before. And it's hard to find in person too.
Yeah, and that women in sales group, I mean, I am constantly on that channel on LinkedIn. And
Yeah.
it is so supportive, and it's all the way from, like, what prospecting emails are you doing today to
Yeah.
what should we pay a junior salesperson to,
Yeah.
what are the negotiation tactics that are out there? I think that's such a powerful community, and you really, lead the way on that. I want to go to the Wayback Machine for a second though. And I want to ask you about your grandma and
Yeah.
her clothing store. And what did you learn from her regarding sales that you still apply today?
Yeah, my grandma, we call her Mimi, and Mimi had several clothing stores. They were ready to wear. It was like upscale women's apparel. So it was apparel, not clothing. And
Apparel.
this is in Lake City, or in Seattle, in the Lake City part of Seattle where I grew up. And she actually had a couple of stores in other parts of Seattle, but she was, her competitor would be Nordstrom.
Mm.
It was a little, she was a little tiny store, but she never discounted except twice a year when she had a sale. So I learned not to discount from working with her. And she built this amazing list of customers, and we would handwrite their names and addresses on postcards and send them out. I can't believe we did that
Oh, I
a
love that.
couple times a year. And she'd get rid of her old stock and bring in the new stock. And she was my role model and mentor. I didn't know it at the time, but this is what you realize later on, that, like, wow, she never discounted. She built her business. She used word of mouth referrals. I mean, she was great. She was on the radio. She had fashion shows, and she was quite a woman.
Oh, I'm making a water toast to Grandma Mimi. Grandma
Yeah,
Mimi.
that's right.
Very
Aw,
good. I want
that's
to
awesome.
go back a little further to when you wrote your book. We
Yeah.
have many authors in our audience, but also some potential authors that might be a little bit scared or stuck when it comes to writing your book. So my first two
Yeah.
questions are, what was the inspiration behind writing the book? And what was maybe your toughest challenge with the whole book writing process?
Oh my goodness, so many tough challenges. But the reason I got it done, I was going to my son and daughter-in-law's house, and I said, I can't show up one more time without my book being done. Because every time I go, I'm like, "Oh, I'm working on my book. I'm working on my book." And it takes a lot of focused energy to write a book. It puts you out there, like, this is what you represent. And so there are a lot of issues around writing a book and feeling good about the process. I needed stronger deadlines. I pushed my deadlines out. So I think that was one of the downsides. I would write a book along with other people or in a small group where everyone's accountable for deadlines. If you're not conventionally published and you're self-published, then it's just up to you. You can just keep pushing things and pushing. And so I would do it differently, because the sooner you get it done, the better. And we all have a story to share. We all people need to hear your story out there. So don't put it off. And I would today, what I do now, because I'm working on my next book, is to
Mm.
make time and to block time in your calendar and honor that time.
Yeah. Can you share? Well, first, two more questions because you brought up one thing that I want to know about. But how has the book helped your career professionally and personally? And what's your next book? What's the topic of your next book?
So this book is called She Sells, and I wanted it to be the more about the environment, about all the obstacles, and why the whole thing about, well, why aren't there more women and black and brown people in sales? I wanted to handle that first, instead of like, you just need to try harder and you need to do, there's some institutional things that we have to work around, and then we can work on being our best self. But it's not one or the other, it's both. We need to do both. So the next book is called She Leads, and it's
Mm,
about
Mm,
what women ourselves can do to rise within an organization or get into sales in the first place. So
mm.
I wanted to do it in that order. And was there another question?
so, how did publishing the book and being an
Oh,
author, how has it helped you personally and professionally?
yes, I think it felt good just to get it done, to accomplish something, check it off.
Preach, preach.
Yeah, and I've sent it to many people. One of the fun things recently, there's a guy named Kyle Coleman who's a chief marketing officer, and he's on LinkedIn. He has a big following. I mailed him a couple of copies of my book, and he ended up underlining a page about it. There was a page that talked about how women are underpaid compared to male counterparts, and how women overperform in some of the studies that we've seen about women versus men in sales. And so he did this post on LinkedIn, and it was viewed by lots of people that are not, connected, first degree connections to me. It was a really great example of how to amplify the book. And what I want it to do is to get into the hands of sales managers and company leaders in bigger companies that I don't even have contact with, so that they can get some ideas and work to improve and do better. And if they do better, if they try, and if they reach out, I will help them. And I just want to see more. I just want us to change the face of sales, is what I
Mm.
really want.
I
Nice. Now,
mean,
before we get to you, Manny, I got to say hello to Lauren Bailey, who's in the chat. She says, "Yay for
ah,
sales,"
Yay!
and Laurie. So,
Little
hello,
girl
Lauren. Thank you
club.
for tuning
hi,
in.
Lauren.
Go ahead, Mandy.
Well, I wanted to build on, you're writing, your next book is She Leads, and you talked about women amplifying their voice and really lifting themselves and others up as leaders. What are 2 or 3 things that you're seeing in the marketplace right now that if women could do, they would be seen more as leaders in the marketplace?
One thing is that women do not interact on LinkedIn as much as men do.
Mm,
So, and I know there are a lot of reasons for it. One of them is just flat out time issue. You
mhm,
just don't have enough time. I just want to encourage people that sometimes people say, oh, it's not very interesting. I'm just leading a sales team. Like it's no big deal. And I would say, you could inspire another woman who's up and coming just by sharing your thoughts, even if you did it once a week or a couple times a month, and put some thought into posting something maybe a little more long form, so that people could learn that even though you're there, you're actually interacting, because they don't see you when you're not posting. I know it's a problem. I know there's a time issue, but somehow find a way to capture your thoughts. Write that book if it's a book, or post on LinkedIn in smaller format and occasionally, and share what you're learning. When I started blogging years ago, and I didn't know what to write. I thought, who would care what I have to say? And so I started reading books like Jill Conrath's book, and then I
mhm.
did a book review. And I gave my thoughts about what I thought. And all of a sudden, I had a voice. I had more to say. And that's how you develop your voice.
I think that's such a great point too, in realizing like people do want to hear from you. No
Yeah.
one's going to tell your story. You have to tell your story. And that is a way to amplify your voice and inspire others to amplify theirs. That's a good point, Laura. I
Yeah,
appreciate
and
that.
if you run into creepy people, like someone reached out to me and said that she posted she was looking for a job, and this gentleman said, "Oh, you'll never find one," or it was just super negative. And I said, "Just get rid of him. Just don't disconnect from him, and it doesn't matter. He's just a little speck in the ocean. Don't
That's
worry
right.
about it, and
There,
move on." Right?
moveon.com. There's so much power in just hitting delete. Just hit
Yeah.
delete. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas our friend Aaron King says, block and bless. Say, I'm blocking you, bless you, and
Um,
Good one. Yeah.
that's a good callback, Amani. I love me some Aaron King. Block and bless. Block and
Yeah.
yes.
bless. It's great.
Blow him
Since
a
you
kiss while
mentioned,
you're at it.
there you go, exactly. Since you
Oh, blow him
mentioned
a kiss.
books, we know you're a really avid, voracious reader. I love that word. If you were going to think about 2 or 3 books that you recommend people stop what they're doing right now and read, what books come to mind? They do not have to be sales related. It could be books in
Yeah.
general, or it could be sales related. What books come to mind?
Well, the ones I'm looking at, I have books all over the place here, but the ones I can see, I'm reading one. Julie Thomas wrote about value selling, and
Mm,
she has a new book called The Power of Value Selling. Also, Buyer First by Carol Mahoney is a really great book, really well done. Sam Horn wrote a book called Talking on Eggshells, and
Oh,
she's a
Ooh.
real very skilled person around words. I love learning about words and using different words and building my vocabulary. So those are some. And then there's one, a woman named Lisa Bragg, and she wrote a book called Bragging Rights, because I always love it when women learn to be able to say that they did something without feeling like, oh, I'm bragging, but if it's true, it's not bragging. That's what I've learned.
there you go. Yes, awesome. Great list there. Um, okay. So that's the book recommendations. What, in terms of 2024, we're in December now. What's like next for you? What are you hoping to accomplish in 2024 that will kind of continue to further establish you as like, the sales guru and the sales expert, particularly for women?
Well, I don't know if that's my goal. My goal is to get more women into sales and sales leadership while building my sales consultancy, which is for both men and women, by the way. But in the women's sales pros side of the house, I want to get more visibility at Fortune 250 companies, Fortune
Mm.
500 companies, so that they know that there's a playbook they can use. There's their checklist they can use to get to get some things accomplished that they previously haven't been successful at. So that's a big
Interesting.
one. Grow the podcast, raise more money for scholarships for the Sales Education Foundation for women, things like that. I got
Mm.
a big list.
I love a list. I love it. Well, while we're here, since we just talked about next year, we're nearing the end of this year. What are some things you've learned about yourself in 2023? Some perspective.
I've learned that it's really good to clarify. I tend to spread myself out too thin, and 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 I'm not a perfectionist, which is a good thing from my perspective. I've never wanted to be a perfectionist, but I also, when you're not a perfectionist, you also allow the fact that, yeah, it's going to be sloppy sometimes. It's not always going to be perfect. But when you spread yourself out too thin, there's too many things that kind of get overlooked. So I've reeled in some things so that I'm going to have less things going on and more focus on the ones that I do. And I think that's important to evaluate periodically. I think it's good for everyone to evaluate that. And for me, it was just a good time for me to plan, what do I want to do in the next couple of years.
I appreciate that because I think women more than men too, and not to genderize anything, but I do think women, we do spread ourselves out too thin and we do have to reel ourselves back in every now and again. So what advice, like what got you to a point where you're like, you know what, I gotta reel this in. This is getting bonkers. Like what
Yeah.
advice do you have for women out there that are embarking on the same thing?
Do an evaluation of how you spend your time. And that's one of the things I did. And I realized I had about 100 hours that I could reapply to growing the women in sales thing within companies bigger. And so I'm just reallocating time.
Mm, that's good.
Interesting.
Powerful.
Exactly. We've kind of come to the part of the show where it's time for us to kind of flip the script, and we're going to let you ask both myself and Mandy a question. So, any question is on limits, nothing is off limits. Who do you want to ask a question to first, and what is that question?
I think I'm going to ask you, Amani, since I don't know you as well. What's one thing that you're going to stop doing next year instead of starting
Ooh.
to do? We always add things, Is there something you'll stop?
Great question. What will I stop doing? Hmm. So I'm on a mission to really eliminate or really severely decrease the amount of people pleasing that I do.
Mm.
Oh,
And so that's like a really interesting thing that I really want to stop to do and be able to kind of say no and just kind of focus on making decisions for myself. That's a huge area of opportunity and growth for me. So that's what comes to mind when you ask me, what do I want to stop doing?
I like that one. Do you like that, Mandy?
I love it, and just because I know Amani so well, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Say no to me. I'm gonna give you a gold star every time you say no to me.
Okay.
Okay, then you're practicing. Nope.
It's
Yes.
practice, it's
Yes.
practice.
I have one of my grandsons was real little. He would put his hand up and he'd go, "Nope." And
Ah,
we learned to do that. The
let's
Harlem
stop.
no. We go, "Nope."
Yeah.
Talk to the hand.
Talk to the
Oh,
hand, it's
How
cute.
about you,
yes.
Mandy? Is there anything you're gonna give up?
You know, I have been on a this year's been a big year of efficiency for all of my businesses. I've got more people on my team than I ever have before. I've done some things this year in terms of scaling that I'm really proud of. And so I think next year I'm gonna give up more of the administrative tasks because what I learned is, and this is not rocket science, but it's just good to put into practice, is the more I can delegate a lot of that administrative stuff, the higher level I can operate for my customers. I can really go to a deeper level of consultation, a deeper level of strategy, and a deeper level of engagement. And when you're mired down with paper pushing and all that other stuff, it just doesn't work. So it's funny. This year I did a lot of scaling, but next year I'm going to let go of more things that maybe I might not have considered administrative before. Like there's certain things in your business where you're like, oh, I can be the only one that has to do that. But I'm
Yeah.
gonna let go of more of that stuff where it's like I don't have to be the only one. Like there's really only 20% of my business that I have to do. But so I'm gonna let go of more of those things because I did it this year with great success and all the businesses grew. So I'm gonna try just letting
Right?
go a little bit more. The control freak in me is gonna try to let go a little bit more again next
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
Yay. That's
I
great.
love it.
Yeah.
Since we're kind of on this topic of kind of personal development, self-development, sales, so Lori, like, what do you feel are some of the under the radar sales activities that people don't do nowadays that they really should get back to doing that was more successful in the
Mm.
past?
Oh, I love that question. I think it's one of the things I can contribute to the conversation because I'm old school, you know, because I've been doing this for so long. It's funny because I have books that are old, but there's some good messages in them. And before I was going to throw them all out when I moved, I thought, no, I gotta pull those messages out, those lessons out. I think the biggest thing is that we forget about the power of mindset.
Mm,
And if your mind, you know, if you're clear on something and you are dedicated to doing something, just like we talked about earlier with, you know, will over skill, you can get that done, you know, and don't underestimate that power. I'll have days where I just don't feel as motivated, and then I'll think about my overarching goal, and you know, boom, you know, I get up and or move and get it done, and that's what it's all about. Just keep moving, right?
Right. So if we meet people who are struggling with their mindset,
Yeah.
how do you help them kind of improve or change it from maybe a fixed mindset to more of a growth mindset?
Yeah. Well, sometimes therapy is involved. I'm not a therapist, so I can't. Sometimes people really need to talk to somebody like that. I encourage when I have a really hard time, I go help other people that are less fortunate than me, and there's just no way I can't come away without saying I'm so lucky, you know, I'm so fortunate. Now let's get up and get going. And that's what gets me going. In my worst scenario is that I'll go do that. If it's just a matter of, you know, sometimes it's like with exercise, I don't want to go ride my bike and I get on my bike and I feel great.
mm.
So it's just getting on and getting going. And that's the way I always am with whatever whether I'm swimming or biking or something. So I usually am like, I don't want to go. And then I get back, I'm like, yeah,
So
oh,
proud of yourself, high fiving yourself.
yeah, I could do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I think you bring up a good point though, because I talk a lot about the holistic salesperson because we do have these extreme highs and these extreme lows. All business people do. And it's like, how are you caring for yourself? So do you think wellness should be a part of a company strategy in terms of how they're caring for their
Yeah,
business people?
for sure. For sure. I mean, I came from the school of hard knocks on that.
Yeah.
It's just like, good luck, here you go. See if you survive. But it's really important, and good leaders care about your mental state. Good leaders care about how you're feeling, and good leaders pick up on that. So I always tell people, if you're in a place where you're not liking the product or service that you represent, you don't have leadership that is supportive of you, that you're tolerated and not celebrated, that's you might want to look around, in the coming year, especially if you're a woman in sales and you're good at what you do. You have a lot of options out there. So
Mm.
don't forget that, and don't be somewhere where people you feel like you're being put down. There are just too many other options for you.
I love the "Are you tolerated or celebrated?" Just
Mhm.
posing that question,
Yeah.
asking inward, asking outward. That's awesome. I'm gonna steal that. I'll give you street cred for it, but I'm gonna
All
steal
right.
that. That's cool.
Love it.
What
Now, if go ahead, Mandy, then I got one.
well, I was gonna ask about the She Sells Summit. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about what you've done in the past? Who attends? Why did you create it? And what's good? I think next year's in formation, but what are you thinking about for next year?
Yeah, we've got the wheels turning about 2014. But previously we've had a leadership conference. We have three different conferences, with presentations that are all archived at shesellsummit.com. You can get in just with your name and email. That's the only gating that there is. We're not asking for anything else, but just to kind of see how people are using it. And there's some fantastic presentations that are on there, all different topics in leadership and in sales and in being a woman in sales. And I would encourage people to check them out. I just wanted to have a place where people could go and get inspired, and I am hopeful that we can, pull something off next year too.
You will. You will. Everybody
Yeah.
wants in. Yeah. It's
Yes,
great.
definitely. Now, if I recall correctly, when you can tell me if I'm wrong, but when you were graduating college, University of Washington, you're a Huskies fan still? Are you
Yeah.
still
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so go ahead. You're, I think one
That's
of
our
those
second Huskies fan this
in a
month,
row.
right?
Second in
Yeah.
a row. Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
Second in a row.
Oh
And
yeah.
if we were going to go back and talk to 21-year-old Lori, but give her advice based on everything you know now, what advice would you give your younger self?
Well, 21-year-old Lori had a 3-year-old son.
Yes, yes.
So I would give myself some grace. That's the first thing I would do, and
Mm.
say, don't be too hard on yourself. You're going to get through it. It was really tough times back then, and there were gaps in education, a lot of gaps. I actually graduated from high school at 16, got my associate degree by 18, then had my son, then got school done later. So it was, it was not sequential, but it was all about survival back then. And getting into sales, I was able to buy my first house at 27, and that's when I realized we're going to be okay. That it was hand to mouth before that was minimum wage jobs until I got into sales, and that's why I love sales so much. It's such a great profession, and it can, bring out the power that's already in us. It doesn't empower us, but it brings out what we already had to be, especially when it's a single parent. If it's a single mom, we know that women will support our families, we will support our communities, and it just makes everything better by supporting women, in sales roles.
Now, how were you able to be so resilient at such a young age and continue to be resilient as you got more mature?
Yeah, thank you. I love that. Um, I don't know. I think I got that from my dad. But it's also about falling down, getting back up, and just I've just been around a lot of people who've had it worse than me, and people who have made great successes of themselves. I'm just motivated in that way to do that. I want to be able to leave a legacy where I did something, where I I just saw something about Billie Jean King the other day, and I
Mm,
thought, man, she's got such an amazing legacy, and it's nice to be able to make a dent on what supposedly, equality for women is supposed to take 100 years or something.
mm.
But I think we can make a dent, and that's what I want to do in business to business selling. So we'll see if I'm right or not in the next couple of years.
Oh, you're making dents, you're making divots, you're making
Yes.
craters. You're doing it, Lori. You're doing it.
I'll let Mandy kind of close us out with her final questions, and I'll see if I have any others to add because you have sparked some things in my mind. So go ahead, Mandy.
I can see the smoke. I can see the smoke coming out of your ears, Amani. I love it. I love it. So it's the end of the year, right? This is when salespeople are making or breaking. And
Yeah.
then within a day, we rinse and repeat, we start all over again. So what advice do you have for the grinders out there? End of the year advice, and then kicking off the new year advice for the salespeople out there in the thick of it right now.
Yeah, focus on that mindset, see what's doable to accomplish, what's realistic. Start planning for next quarter. You're only going to get so much done. You can only close so much business before the end of the year. People are going to start checking out here any day now, next week, probably. And so, start setting meetings for next year. Let them know, hey, I know you're winding down. Can I catch you, on January 7th or the 8th? And get those appointments set now, because everybody else is going to start on the 2nd or the 3rd or the 4th or whatever weekdays it is. And, you want to get a jump on that, and just work on what's doable, have a stretch goal, and be where you are comfortable, where can sell these products and services because you like them, you admire them, they're helping people. And if you don't feel that, and if you don't feel that you're treated that way, like I said, it might be time to be looking around over the holidays.
Ah, I love that. Be celebrated, not tolerated. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I just want to say thank you first for spending time with us. I feel that your legacy is well on its way to being very memorable. So keep doing what you're doing. It's been a pleasure to meet you. I can't wait to learn more from you and just continue to be an inspiration to us all, particularly in the sales space. So
Yeah.
just thanks again.
Thank you, Amani. It's a pleasure to
Yeah.
meet you.
Nice to meet
Yeah.
you. And how can we support you? I know we have the Score More Sales website rolling, and
Yep.
follow Lori Richardson on LinkedIn. But how else
Yep.
can we support you?
Yep, on Instagram at Women's Sales Pros or at Score More Sales, or both. And reach out on LinkedIn. If you do it through a connection, say that you saw the podcast, because I have a lot of connection requests and I don't accept them all.
Mm,
So
Yes.
give me a reason, reference this, and that will help.
awesome.
Amazing.
We will. Thank you.
We'll give you a round of applause. We'll put you back at the green room momentarily. So just thanks again. Amazing
Thank
time
you.
talking with
Ah.
you. Okay, Mandy, what do we have to look forward to next week?
Well, we got your buddy. Your buddy's closing us out for the year,
Oh, yes,
Melissa
yes.
Majors.
Melissa Majors, amazing human being, a professional speaker, consultant, all things. So I can't wait to see what she's going to share with us. I know her pretty well, so I'm going to have to really dig deep to get some good questions. But I can't wait for you to meet her because I think you two will vibe really well. And she's a nice person, an amazing person to close out the year for us. So that's great. So, a couple announcements. First of all, make sure that you rate and review the show on whatever platform you use, whether it be Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. Subscribe to us. Follow our channel, Adventures Business Live, on LinkedIn. And I think that's it, right? Did I miss anything, Manny?
I
No.
mean, where if you just type in Adventures in Business Live, you can find us on Instagram and Spotify and Apple and YouTube, all the places. So, however you navigate your internet world, we're there. Just, type us in and find us however works best for you. And don't forget to sign up for Sales Tales Life. It's going to be
Yes,
fun.
the link is in
Yeah.
the chat there. The link,
Yeah.
we'll put it in we'll put it in the description for the episode if you're listening to the audio version. So it'll be there. Sign up. I'm signed up. I can't wait to attend and learn.
Mhm.
So
And
With
buy
that,
Lori's book. Buy Lori's book too.
yes,
She sells by Lori
yes,
Richardson.
buy the book. And with that, we'll see everyone next week. It's 4 p.m. on the East, 1 p.m. on the West on Monday. And we can't wait to see you then. And great show. See you soon.
See you soon. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye.